Welcome to the Leader Impact Podcast. We are a community of leaders with a network in over 350 cities around the world, dedicated to optimizing our personal, professional, and spiritual lives to have impact. This show is where we have a chance to listen and engage with leaders who are living this out. We love talking with leaders, so if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions to make the show even better, please let us know. I'm your host, Lisa Peters, and our guest today is Marnie Swedberg. Marnie is an accomplished international leadership mentor, media expert, and master of generating those aha moments. She is the author of 14 books, a keynote speaker, and has graced stages worldwide, and the host of a #1 ranked blog talk radio show. Her dynamic approach to leadership, life, and faith has captivated audience at hundreds of events, conferences, and summits for religious organizations, NGOs, Fortune 500 companies, and government agencies. Welcome to this show, Marnie.
Thanks, Lisa. It's great to be here.
It is great to see you again. I'm just going to give a huge plug. Recently, I was on your show, Marnie's Friends, Talk Radio. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Oh, we had such a good time. So I'm excited for today.
Yeah. It was nice to sort of get that, initial, like we're best friends already. So
yeah, right.
Thanks for taking the time. We love hearing about people's journeys. And of course, we speed it up a little bit because we want to hear about those pivotal turning points that really got you to where you are. So can you give us a couple snapshots of those pivotal moments that got you here today?
Yeah, I'd love to. So first of all, I started off a little behind the eight ball because I didn't really learn how to read until I was an adult. So I just really struggled through school, dyslexic, and didn't have the kind of help that's available these days. And so just really, really struggled and barely graduated. I really shouldn't have graduated from high school. They just let me graduate. And it was after I was out from under the pressure of school that my mind relaxed enough to be able to read, to figure out how to read. So I was able to start reading. And then, Lisa, you couldn't stop me. I just read and read and read and read. When my kids were little, I would sometimes interlibrary loan 40 books a week. I just couldn't get enough of reading. And it was so exciting. Opened up a whole new world. And that was part of the reason why I decided we'd homeschool our kids. So we homeschooled our 3 kids from K to 12 and just loved that journey. Kind of learned everything again for the first time with my children as they were learning it. And it was just an amazing journey. As a young adult, as a teenager, I started working for entrepreneurs. Just happened that our family knew a guy who had a janitorial company. So me and my sister worked for him. And then I started working in his office. I knew another guy who had a ceiling tile company, and I started doing part-time office work for him, and then went to work for a fitness organization that just had 5 branches, local organization. And I was just exposed to a lot of entrepreneurs early on, fell in love with that business model instead of working corporate or whatever. I tried that and I just couldn't really do that. And so I loved the freedom of the entrepreneurship lifestyle. So later, when our kids were teens, my husband first bought a restaurant that I managed, and then we bought a retail store that I managed. And along this time, I was also managing womenspeakers.com, which is a directory now with 1,800 speakers and thousands of planners, the speakers traveling all over the world. So always loved that entrepreneurial lifestyle, and just still doing that today, and love it. Have trained it all over the world.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to go right back to dyslexic.
Yeah.
How did you get through school?
I memorized a lot of words. So most of what we read are the same words over and over. So I memorized a lot of words. And then I just had to slow down and sound out a lot of words, just slow way down. I remember being in 11th grade and just my science teacher, I just said, I just need help. I need help. I want to learn this. I just can't. And he said, if I gave you the test in advance, would you be willing to work on that? And I did, and I got 100% on that test. I just couldn't do it in the time pressure of the moment. It was a pressure thing that my brain just couldn't relax enough, right?
Yeah. That's a great story in that they were willing to work with you. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just going to guess our ages. That was a while ago,
Yeah.
because schools are way more flexible now. So,
And
um,
aware and aware. I mean,
yeah,
learning disabilities at that time was kind of not a normal thing. There were no special ed classes. There was nothing to help that. And we were always in private schools, small, not expensive private schools, but the small schools that the parents sent you to if they just wanted to tuck you away and have you, have you learn from their biblical perspective, which I'm always grateful for.
yeah,
But what's amazing now is I've written 14 books and I'm a trainer of writers. So I think when you're faced with a challenge in your youth, you can either give into that and not try, or you can be the person who, really kept on working toward it. And I think what it did for me is developed a lot of skills that I wouldn't have today.
mhm,
I had to figure out ways to make it work without the advantages of other people.
yeah. Which I think really is a great thing for being a coach, is recognizing this in others and knowing the tools that can be provided. So, thanks for sharing that, Marnie. Um, on our podcast, we talk a lot about principles of success, and we're wondering if you have one and if you can share a story that illustrates that.
Oh my goodness, I have so many. So I think the thing that I love to share the most is the uniqueness of you and the principle of truly discovering and embracing who you are. I say it this way: when God strung together your 3 billion base pairs of DNA, he did it in a particular way. And I just always encourage people, spend some time doing some mission and vision work for yourself. Figure out what turns your crank, what you're really excited to do. It's not that we get to do that all day, every day, but once we identify what that really is, and like Lori Beth Jones has an amazing book out, it's been out forever, called The Path. I love that book. I have a mission vision training at marnie.com. But however you go about it, take time to figure out who you are and then really lean into that. I'm going to just talk about my own story where people have my whole career in business and entrepreneurship. People have encouraged me to niche down, to pick one lane. Lisa, I'm so glad I didn't listen to that advice, because for me, that wouldn't have worked. For most people, that's very good advice. But for me, that wouldn't have worked. And instead, I was writing books and homeschooling my kids, managing a restaurant and managing a retail store, managing a women's speakers site online, and traveling and speaking and being a missionary at the same time. So for me, that would have really shut down, I believe, what I was created to do. But because I mentioned earlier, my parents sent us to Christian schools. At the time, that was very unusual to take your children out of a public school and put them in a Christian school. And so we had to deal with a lot of, not abuse, but a lot of incoming, why are you doing this? And it's going to ruin your children. I mean, things that we would hear all the time. And my parents drilled into us, there's only one you, you be the best you can be, it'll be all right. And I really feel like that was just the best advice. And as I work with women around the world, some of these girls have the most incredible calls on their life, like what they're here to do. I have some girls who literally go into strip clubs and befriend the strippers in order to help them to have a best life possible. If they want to get out, they help them get out. If they want to stay in, they just befriend them where they are. And, everybody that's listening to us right now, you're doing things the way you do them that nobody else can do them. Other people could maybe do something similar, but nobody can do it the way you do it. So I just encourage you, really focus on the gift of you as the primary thing that you have to offer the world, and then figure out how to do whatever it is that you're doing, bringing that full gift to the table.
Ah, it's a great principle. So, are you thinking of the uniqueness of you? You were very busy. You listed all the things you were doing, and you didn't niche down. Are you still, like, when I look at your website and I see the virtual summits and I see the talk radio and I see the women's, like, there's still a lot. Are you still that busy?
I'm not busy in the same way. Yeah, and definitely I'm not as busy as when we owned the restaurant and the retail store at the same time. I tell you what, Lisa, every day I get up and I thank God I'm not in the retail or the restaurant business anymore. Those are, for those of you listening who that's your gig, it's so much work. It's just an incredible amount of physical labor to run a retail store, to run a restaurant. And, for those of you who are managing a bunch of people, wow, that's insane. That is so much
Mhm.
work. So now I am busy myself. I have a team of outsourcers from all over the world who work with me through Upwork mostly. And I am very busy, but it's not the same. It's not the same type of busy. And like when I was homeschooling my kids, okay, that's a whole different type of busy again. So you have seasons. You have seasons where it's different types of busyness. But yeah, I still get up very early every morning, usually 5:30 in the morning, and I start working with my teams around the world. And then as the day goes by, I'm doing uh, meetings and talks with people here in the States, and it goes from
Yeah.
there.
It's unique. It's not unique. The working around the world. We can do that now. I mean, look at us. We are not in the same country, and we're sitting here talking like we're just down there, down the street. It's really, and we can work around the world anytime, any place. Our next question, we talk a lot about our failures, and we know we learn from our failures and mistakes. We learn way more. And I'm wondering if you have one of your greatest failures or mistakes that you can share with us and what you learned from it.
Okay, so there's so many. Where do I begin?
Oh, that's why we're so smart.
I remember one day I had a girls' club in my home. My children were ages probably 5 to 10 at the time. And girls would come off the school bus after school 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And we would together from 3 to 5:30, we would make meals for families that were in trouble, just coming back from a medical trip or just welcoming new baby, or maybe, back went out on the mom or something, just something, lost a loved one, whatever. And I taught these girls how to cook, and then we would sing together. I taught them how to sew little baby bibs, to applique little baby bibs, and we'd send those with the meals. And these were just girls that I had this club in my home for 10 years, and it was just an amazing time. And there was one day when I was exceedingly tired, and I went into my room and I laid down for a little bit before they came, and then finally there was a little tiny knock, knock, knock on my door. And so I said, come in. And it was one of the girls. Her name was Wendy. I remember specifically. And she said, Marnie, we're here. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Oh, wow, wow, wow. And I had totally fallen asleep so hard. I didn't realize what time it was at all. And they were all out in the kitchen. And she said to me, she said, we've been here for about 10 minutes, but your kids said, don't knock on the door because you can't interrupt her when she's sleeping. And so we were too scared to come in. And that really hit me hard. I thought, oh gosh, I didn't really mean to have my kids be that scared of me taking a nap. And so that was a big one. There's so many things that we do and we don't recognize how it affects people. I remember the day I walked into the back door of our retail store, and I walked past and I looked over to the right and I saw my manager there. She was just standing there. And when she saw me, she jumped. She had that look of terror in her eyes and she jumped. But we were like best friends. So I went over to her afterwards and I said, I saw that when you saw me, your startle reflex was fear. Are you afraid of me? Have I done something to cause you to be afraid of me? And she said, not at all. She said, I just have that reaction to authority figures. Her mom had been, pretty abusive as a child, and she had that, and she had it toward me because of my role. And what I'm trying to say with these two stories is, as a leader, you carry with you the ability to scare people when you don't mean to scare people. You're not meaning to scare people. I'm going to bring this home with one more illustration. One morning early, we lived on beautiful Lake of the Woods up in northern Minnesota. It was really, really remote, but it was absolutely beautiful. One morning, I took my car and I drove my little tracker down toward the beach. I was just going to watch the sunset or sunrise a moment before I started the day. And as I came into the parking lot, I was the only vehicle there. As I came into the parking lot, it was covered with seagulls, just thousands of seagulls. And as I drove right in, they all lifted up in this big, beautiful rise. And in my heart, I heard God say, never do that to people.
Hmm.
And I thought, wow, sometimes as a leader, that's exactly what we do. We walk in with so much power. We walk in so much bigger, not because we're trying to be bigger, just because our position makes us bigger. And the seagulls lift and move out of the way, and they're scared you're going to run them over. And, it's nothing you've done, actually.
Yeah.
It's just the position you're in. So I feel like we all have to learn this at some point to
Mhm.
tenderly carry the souls that we lead.
Yeah. And to ask that employee that you scared, actually ask her, did what is it? Did I scare you?
Right.
That's a hard thing for a leader to, not everyone can do it.
Yeah.
They just sort of go, oh, I scared her. But to actually ask and to find out the why, right?
Yes. Well, and
Oh,
one of the things is people told us before we bought our first business, the restaurant, people told us, don't hire your friends. It just doesn't work out well. And we did not listen to that advice. And we hired our really, really bestest friends. We had one manager who worked for us the full 14 years we owned that business. And she was our best friend before we owned it. She was our best friend after we owned it. And a lot of our friends came to work for us. But I had all through the years, I had managers of other businesses tell me, well, you can't really be friends with your employees. And I just say, why not? Why not? So if you will tenderly carry the hearts of the people who work for you, you can help them identify that there are different roles in this, but we're all in this together. And one of the ways that I communicated that, especially at the restaurant, is super easy. During a rush, just walk in and do whatever needed to be done, whether it was cleaning up a mess on the floor, doing dishes, chopping veggies, whatever it was. Walk in and do whatever they needed. They bossed me around in that moment. I don't walk in pretending I know what's going on because I'm walking into a firestorm and I don't know what's going on, but I can help. I am a couple hands and I can help. So I think just being humble about the leadership position you're in, it's a position and there are responsibilities and privileges that come with it. But as long as you recognize that theirs is also just a position, there are privileges that come with that. One is they don't have to think about where the payroll is coming from. There's some privileges in just clocking in and clocking out as well. So
yeah,
I think as long as we're just aware of that and humble, we can have the most amazing relationships even with our teams.
yeah. Uh, Thank you for sharing that story, and I think that's really important. It reminds me of a man that I used to work for, and he was the most humble leader. And to this day, when I see him, it just brings such good feelings because he would, we were on site at a location, and he came and had lunch with us. We were having subs. The man is the president of the company, very large, and he came and I don't forget that. And that
Right.
was 20 years ago, and
It's more about, yeah, and it's more about how he saw himself. He just saw himself as having a different role from you, but not being higher than you in any way. Yeah.
yeah. And as you say that, we ran into him about 2 weeks ago, and he said, "I used to work with Lisa," versus Lisa worked
You
for
see,
me,
used to
or
work for
I
me.
was Lisa's boss, or like no.
Yes.
He said to my husband, "I worked with Lisa." I'm like, "You were the president," like, but okay, we work together. So,
I love that.
oh, good stories, Marnie. Thank you for sharing. So at Leader Impact, we want to grow personally, professionally, and spiritually for increasing impact. So I'm wondering if you're willing to share an example of how the spiritual makes a practical difference in your life as a leader.
Oh, it's so fun because before we bought the restaurant, my husband was still working corporate. And so before we bought the restaurant, he said, I want to buy a brick and mortar. So he'd been doing investing in stock market. He said, I want to buy a brick and mortar. He said, I want our kids to grow up in it and to learn best practices of doing a small business. And he said, and I also want to train other teens in the community, what the Bible teaches about running a business.
Mhm.
And I thought, pie in the sky, it's a restaurant.
Right.
And I was going to be managing it. I thought, that was just a completely unrealistic goal. But that is exactly what happened, Lisa, is that we were able to bring to the restaurant business
Mhm.
biblical principles of treating people kindly, of being fair. One of the things when we bought this restaurant, it had been there for 14 years when we bought it, and then we had it for 14 years before we sold it. But when we came in, the biggest complaint was, you never charged me the same thing 2 times in a row. And it was because there were so many different ways they could ask for their food that it was a very customized order. And so you could either, take it over here and do a deduction, or you could bring it from here and add things on. And everybody wasn't doing it in a standardized way. But that's one of the things that the Bible teaches, is that you do a fair accounting, so that when a person comes in, they can expect what they're going to get when they pay a certain amount. So that was one of the things that we had to handle first, was just that. And then another principle that we had in all of our businesses, I still use this to this day, is to listen very closely to the complaints. Listen to what people are telling you. The restaurant doctor, I can't remember his first name now, but I took a course by him way, way, way back. And he said that only 1 out of 20 people will complain. So when you hear one of these complaints, it's gold. Most people are too nice to say anything, but you're messing up somehow. So when you get a complaint, that's when we would really go to work. We would say, okay, how do we never have this happen to somebody again? And go forward from that. And then the opposite, the flip side of that, was we did have a 3 strikes and you're out policy, where we had one lady who would come in and she'd order a salad, and then she would take it back to her desk at work, wherever that was. And then she'd call and she'd say, it wasn't done right. And then, oh, I'm so sorry. Come on in and, we'll make it right next time you're here. So then she actually paid for salads 3 times, calling, and each time it wasn't right. The third time, we just had a policy when that would happen. On the third time, we would just say something like, it seems like that particular menu item isn't working out for you. Maybe we could interest you in a different menu item.
Yes.
Let them know we see you and we see that you're taking advantage here. But by doing that, we had the opportunity to save customers who would have otherwise been lost. My husband went to great extremes at the retail store to do this. One story that I just loved was, there was a guy that kept bouncing checks, and he would come in for coffee. We had a coffee shop and a Bible bookstore in the retail store, and he would come in and he'd bounce a check for $5, and then he'd have the huge fee, and we'd have, it's just a hassle anyway. After he did this several times, and I told my husband, why are you doing this? Just stop it. Just don't take checks from him. But he said, no, I just want to work with them. And so he just sat down with the guy and he just said, this isn't good for you. This isn't good for us. He said, what about, and he did this, Lisa, he did this most amazing thing. He said, what about if you would just put your coffees on account with us? And when you have the money, just come in and pay that account off. And I thought, crazy, he'll never do it. But he did. Not only did he do it, but over the years that we were there, and we had that store for 10 years, over the years we were there, not only did he start coming in and paying cash for his coffees one at a time, but then he went through there's a program, a financial program. I can't remember the name of the guy right now, but anyway, he went through this whole financial program. He started paying off his house. He became this money manager guy that just was so good with money, because my husband had taken time to extend love and give him hope, that there was hope for him, that he could learn to manage money. So I feel like these principles that we bring in with us, so many of them are from the Bible, God's idea first.
Yeah. So question, when you were, because there's a lot of companies that are run by biblical principles, no one would know.
Exactly.
So would you say your employees never knew that the word Bible was never used, but it was kindness and it was giving and it was meeting them where they're at? That's how you would explain that?
Well, we were small businesses, so there was simply no way not for the word Bible to be used, or not for us to be clearly, obviously, Jesus lovers. I mean, that's just who we are, and so our conversations were sometimes about that. But we didn't have any kind of rules that you had to be a Christian or you had to go to a certain church or anything. We didn't have any rules like that for our employees. We're all over the board that way. It was a culture, though, where honesty and integrity and biblical principles were carried. And so a lot of times somebody who didn't like that didn't stay because it wasn't a good fit for them. But yeah, I remember walking in one time, and I never did this myself, but I remember walking in one time, and one of the teenagers had put a Bible verse on the wall that said something about do your work as unto the Lord. And I just went, I remember tipping my head going, well, that's cool. cool. So, I mean, your employees are watching you. Your employees are watching what you're doing, even if, like I say, I never put a Bible verse up. But if they want to, sure.
Right. Oh, I love that. Great example. Great example. Thank you for sharing, Marnie. At Leader Impact, we are dedicated to leaders having a lasting impact. We are almost done. But as you continue to move through this journey, have you considered what you want your faith legacy to be when you leave this world?
Oh, well, I'm pretty clear about that. I have this saying that, you go to a funeral and then when the person's dead, everybody says all these great things about him. And I'm like, why aren't we saying these things to people now?
Yeah.
Say them to people now. And so I do think of those things for other people. Like, how have you affected me? I want to communicate that to you now. And so, of course, I've thought about it for myself too. And a book I wrote in 2015 is called Flow Through Vessel. And it's about how God created us to be literally a flow through vessel of whatever comes in. That's what comes out, basically. If you're taking in toxic content all day long, you're going to be speaking toxic content later in the day or in the week, because that's how it goes. So we're flow through vessels for something. And so my heart is to just be a flow through vessel for God, to just be always hanging with Jesus and always letting the Holy Spirit flow and just to be his flow through vessel. So if you could say one nice thing about me in my future, it would be that
Yeah.
I just flowed light, life, and love to the world from heaven down. And I would love that to be my legacy.
Oh, that's great. I'm going to have to look up Flow Through Vessel, your book. I love that. It was a great legacy you will leave. And our final question is, what brings you the greatest joy?
So my parents didn't know that they were naming me Joyful Joy. When they named me Marnie Joy, they just named me Marnie because they liked the sound of that, and Joy because they thought that was cool. And so they named me Joyful Joy because Marnie in Hebrew means joyful. So, what brings me the most joy, I mean, I just find joy in everything. This morning, I had a chance to just snuggle on a couch and read books to my grandchildren. I mean, that was just amazing, and, I just being here with you brings me so much joy. Yesterday morning, I was sitting on a beach with my sister looking out at the water, and there was a dolphin. That brought me joy. Being with her on a park bench brought me joy. I mean, everything, when your spirit is free, uh, everything brings you joy.
Yeah.
You find joy in the smallest little details. And Lisa, you bring me joy. You are a delight.
Oh, Marnie, thank you. So because life isn't full of joy, Marnie, there are situations, and where do you find? I just have to ask, like, because I listen to it, I think we're just doing a study, and we're talking about problems and obstacles, and what is my thought going into them, and when you come up with a problem, I have to change my mind and go, you know what, we can do this. What do you, when you have a problem, where does your mind go? Are you like, you're super excited, you're going to solve this? Do you acknowledge it, to give yourself a pity party?
Mhm.
Because you do have a very beautiful spirit, and I love to hear, because I think
Mm.
you got to have problems. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I love to hear how people. What are your first thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna whip off a bunch of stuff here that's in my long bio. I have lived through fires and floods, tornadoes and hurricanes, cancer in the family, head injury in my husband, sudden death in the family. I have lived through so many hard things.
Mm,
And in the book Flow Through Vessel, again, I didn't know I was going to plug that, but here we go. So in the book Flow Through Vessel, I go through the 4 R's that are my life. So first of all, Jesus is my 911, and everybody has a 911. It's either anger, or it's like you said, pity. Pity was mine for a long time,
mhm.
just feeling sorry for myself. But I changed, and now I have a 911 that I just start saying the name of Jesus. And then I do the 4 R's, and I teach these. So I'm going to go through them really quick. But the first R is to recognize I've got a problem and that God wants to help me. And then to second R, release it. I just give the problem to God. And then the third R is to receive his reciprocal gift, which is usually something very beautiful like peace or joy or patience or long suffering or an idea, hope, whatever. And then I just respond with gratitude, and I say teasingly to God, I say, Well, thanks for taking that off of my shoulders. Is there anything I can do for you today? And then if there's something I'm supposed to do about it, it comes right then, but it's in a whole different way than it was when I thought I had to solve the problem. And I think that the learning disabilities and all the things that I have lived through have taught me I can either try to do it myself or I can allow the God who made me and loves me help me do it. And that's what I prefer to do.
Yeah. Marnie, thank you. I'm glad I asked that. And I'm glad you shared, because I think sometimes people who have wonderful lives, other people look at you and go, your life has always been good,
Yeah.
And it's not. It's how we react to it and what we do with what happens to us.
Absolutely.
So I'm thankful you shared that. I'm glad. I knew there was something that wanted me to ask that. Well, Marnie, this brings us to the end of our podcast, and I have absolutely loved the last half hour. If anybody wants to connect with you, find out more about if you have any conferences or speaking or your books, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, Lisa, I am old enough and my name is unique enough that I got my own name as my website. So it's just Marnie.com, MARNIE.com. So easy. And everything's over there. The summits, I do 9 virtual summits for women a year, training summits. They're so amazing. A bunch of us get together and just celebrate, and women from all over the world come and enjoy those with us. And then all kinds of my books are over there and the training programs, all of that.
Awesome. Well, Marnie, thank you for joining us. You are a blessing. Thank you.
Lisa, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, if you're part of Leader Impact, you can always discuss or share this podcast with your group. And if you are not yet part of Leader Impact and would like to find out more and grow your leadership, find our podcast page on our website at leaderimpact.ca. You can also check out groups available in Canada at leaderimpact.ca, or if you're listening from anywhere else in the world, check out leaderimpact.com or get in touch with us by email, info@leaderimpact.ca, and we will connect you. And if you like this podcast, please leave us a comment, give us a rating or review. This will help other global leaders find our podcast. Thank you for engaging with us. And remember, impact starts with you.